Hi, welcome to our daily encounter. I want you to picture this scenario. A person goes for 4 years to college, and year after year they pay a lot of money to go to classes. They spend a lot of time studying, a lot of time taking tests, writing papers, everything that's involved with going to school. And they get all the way to the end of that last semester, to the last final they have to take before they graduate. And they give up. They say, this final is just too difficult. This class is too difficult. I give up. I don't care about graduating or anything like that. I just want to pack up my bags and go back home. Well, if you heard about somebody doing that, that'd be very disappointing, and we would think the person was out of their mind. You've gone that far. Can't you just struggle through one more test so that you can graduate and get credit for all the hard work that you did? Well, that's exactly what we find with the Israelites in this story. In Numbers chapter 13 and 14, they had been in the wilderness for over a year, and they had gone through all types of difficulties: hunger, thirst, living in makeshift houses. They had experienced a very difficult time. Everywhere they went, they had to walk. It was just real difficult. And they get all the way to the end of their journey, and they send these spies into the land. Their last obstacle in going to the land was actually just conquering the people of the land. That was kind of their final exam. And then they were going to be able to enter in and enjoy all the riches that God had prepared for them. A land flowing with milk and honey. Houses that they didn't build. Crops that they didn't plant. They were just going to be able to basically walk into the land and basically live the good life. But they had to overcome the enemies. And so these spies go out and they come back and they say, hey, it is a great land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey. They bring back some grapes, some of the fruit of the land, and it definitely does look very, very good. But they give an evil report. They say, well, even though the land's good, the inhabitants of the land are humongous. And they live in fortified cities. There's basically no way we can overtake them. There's no way we're going to be able to enter into this land. The only people who actually said, hey, let's do it, the Lord's on our side, was Joshua and Caleb. But nobody listened to them. As a matter of fact, they wanted to stone them. And the people just are distressed, and they are just beside themselves that the Lord had taken them that far only for them to perish there in trying to enter the land. And they basically want to raise up another leader and go back to Egypt. So they're all the way to the end of their trial. They've only got one more obstacle to overcome, and that is the enemies of the land, and then they can possess the land and be there. But they failed. They failed because of fear, and they failed because of disbelief. And really, the fear came as a result of the disbelief. And so, they disobeyed God. They didn't do what God had called them to do. So God makes the promise that, hey, since you guys didn't believe me because you guys didn't obey me, you're not going to enter into that place of rest. As a matter of fact, you're going to have to wander out here for 40 more years. And only those who are 19 years old and younger are going to be able to enter in. And so, think about that. They've already had to deal with the wilderness for a whole year. And now, not only do they have to stay there another day, another week, another month, but for 40 years they have to live this rigorous lifestyle for the rest of their lives. And they have the promise that they are going to die in that condition. I don't know if you've ever been on a vacation. I'm sure you have. You've been on vacation. You've been away from home. And I don't care what vacation you've gone on. It might be a very fun vacation. Maybe Disney World or something like that. But you always come to a point where you're just ready to come home. You're done with traveling. You're done with living out of a suitcase. You just want somewhere permanent to rest your head. Well, you gotta believe that the people are feeling that way. And now they receive news that it's going to be 40 more years of the same thing. Very, very difficult thing to hear. But as much as we might sympathize with them, at the same time we got to look at it through God's eyes. God had brought them through so many things. They had experienced miracle after miracle with the Lord. I really like 1 Corinthians chapter 10 that sums up what they went through in the wilderness, or what they experienced, where it says in verse 1, "For I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea." Remember that pillar, that cloud that they followed by day, and then also the Red Sea that split open. Both of those were great miracles that they experienced. And it says, "And all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food," speaking about the manna that typified Christ, "and all drank the spiritual drink." This was the water that flowed out of the rock that typified Christ as well. He says, for they were drinking from a spiritual rock which followed them, and the rock was Christ. Therefore saying that was a type of Christ. Then he says, "Nevertheless, with most of them God was not well pleased, for they were laid low in the wilderness." Despite the fact that they had experienced all those miraculous things, seen God's provision in all these various manifested ways, they did not please the Lord, and therefore they did not make it into the land. How disappointing that is. But now we got to look at our own lives. Think about all that God has done for us. We've basically experienced everything that the Israelites have experienced. We've hit on this as we've gone through reading these chapters. That all of this typify what we have in Christ Jesus. We have all experienced the deliverance of the walking across the Red Sea. In our baptism, we basically experience our deliverance from the world, our dying to our old self, dying to the world, and being raised in newness of life. And so we've experienced that. We've experienced Christ as our manna, as our daily food, as we talked about yesterday. We've experienced Christ as as the rock that had the living water flowing out, as John chapter 7 verses 37 and 38 show a fulfillment of that. Whoever believes in him, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. Christ is the source of living water. And so we've experienced a lot of wonderful things. We've experienced Christ as our tabernacle. We've experienced Christ as our sacrifice. We've experienced Christ as our high priest. All of that put together. And we've experienced a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that we are then immune to falling away, immune from walking away from the Lord. I'm sure everybody that's watching this video can think of one person in their life, a friend, a relative, or someone that they know has walked away from the Lord because of either a trial that enters their life, someone comes in and brings deception, and they become deceived and walk away from the Lord. Or maybe it's out of fear of their parents, fear of society, fear of their boss, whatever it is, they walk away because of fear. There's a lot of different reasons why we might walk away from our faith. But the encouragement that we have to have is that we don't want to be like that. We don't want to have experienced all the riches of Christ, all the wonder of Christ, all the beautiful things we have in Christ, only at the end to fall away, only at the end to walk away in disbelief. This is what the Hebrew writer warned his audience about in the book of Hebrews in chapter 3. He says in verse 5, "Now Moses was faithful in his house as a servant for a testimony of those things which were to be spoken later. But Christ was faithful as a son over his house, whose house we are, if we hold fast our confidence and boast of our hope firm until the end. We've got to hold on to Christ, firm to the end. In verse 12, he says, "Take care, brethren, that there not be in any one of you an evil, unbelieving heart that falls away from the living God." And then I love this verse, "But encourage one another day after day, as long as it is still called today, so that none of you will be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin." Here the Hebrew writer says you need to encourage each other every single day. And this is, I don't want to sound like a commercial here, but that's what this group is all about. And this was the intention of this group, of our daily encounter, was not just so that I would be able to encourage you guys on a daily basis, but that all of you guys could encourage each other on a daily basis as you read your scriptures, as you make reflections about the Word, and you share those on the page. That's a way in which we can encourage each other daily. Why do we want to do that? So that none of us will fall away, that we can hold firm and fast to Christ, because we have each other's encouragement pushing us through. In chapter 4 and verse 1, "Therefore let us fear, if, while a promise remains of entering his rest, any one of you may seem to have come short of it." Time and time again, the Hebrew writer is saying, don't fall short of entering into God's rest. Wouldn't it be sad to go through all these trials, all these hardships in life, only to give up the faith and walk away from the Lord at the end, and to miss out on all the wonderful things God's got prepared for us? That beautiful rest, a time in which the sun will no longer beat down on us, when He'll wipe away every tear from our eyes, that there will be no more sorrow, no more pain, no more sickness, but we'll live in eternal bliss with the Lord. That's what we're looking forward to, and that's what we're striving for. So let's not let deceit, let's not let fear, let's not let hardship, any of those things drag us down and keep us from obtaining the goal that we have set our eyes upon. That's our encouragement today in our reading. Let's not follow the example of the Israelites here. Let's hold fast, let's finish out strong, and let's enter into that rest. So, just a few things to think about. I do thank you guys for watching the video today. I hope you guys have a great day. I love you guys. God bless.